After Max Verstappen's incredible win last weekend, normal service was resumed for today's race as Lewis Hamilton claimed his 4th win in a row at the Spanish Grand Prix. Welcome back to the Formula 1 Grid Talk podcast. Today I'll be reviewing today's Spanish Grand Prix. We are powered by the F1 Chronicle. Visit f1chronicle.com for news, reviews and opinions on all things F1. Hosting today will be me, George Howson, and joining me today are sports journalist Dev Tyagi, F1 YouTuber Brit O'Connor.
Hello.
And host of the Grid Strip podcast, it's Philip Matthew.
Hello.
Thank you guys. Thank you for joining us. Welcome as well to Brit and Phil. It's their first podcast with us. So let's get into it. So, Dev, it was an absolutely imperious display today by Lewis Hamilton on another level today. Good gap to the rest of the field today. It looked untroubled, and I think it was a Grand Slam. I think it was his 8th in his career.
Yeah, he had a really impressive day today. I think great start, no trouble there, went straight down to the first corner. And yeah, it was a pretty breeze from there, to be honest. Really good race from him.
Yeah, easy in the end for him. Dev, unfortunately, having some mic issues, I believe. I can't hear at the moment, Dev, but I'm sure we'll sort that out. Yeah, thanks for that, Brit. Thanks for cutting in there, saving bacon there. But yeah, it was just on another level. I mean, obviously, Mercedes having the trouble with the tyres last weekend, no such trouble this weekend. I think it's his 8th Grand Chelem, I think the term is. Led every lap, pole, fastest lap, and the win. Just back on form, and that championship gap extended further. I mean, it's pretty early doors still. There's over half the season still to go, but it's just looking like nobody can catch Lewis Hamilton.
His own zone. I mean, he didn't even know it was the end of the race. He was so comfortable there at the end, and he basically lights the flag. I mean, outside of that, I mean, Bottas, I think, nipped him at the end there when they changed him back onto the mediums to get a fastest lap. But the fact is, just a typical masterclass by Lewis. What you expect generally. Max, in the first segment there, before the first pit stops, Max was within 1.2, 1.3 of Lewis, and he got on the radio and said he's just going so slow. And then once, whatever mode Bono had him on for that until, he had to go start making that gap, then he blew the gap out to like 4 or 5 seconds, and that was basically the end of it. And Bottas's nightmare start, which I figure we'll talk about here soon, but that kind of set the tone for basically the podium.
Yeah, terrible start for Bottas. That really stopped him challenging for the lead before it was the end of the first corner, really. And like you say as well, Max Verstappen, just the only other guy who was in a Mercedes. Wasn't in a Mercedes that ended up finishing on the same lap. It was very dominant display by the Black Arrows today. But how good of a performance today was it by Lewis Hamilton? He was on another level. Like, nobody could really touch him. Phil said, like you said, corrected that Bottas did get the fastest lap, but other than that, it was a perfect weekend for him.
Yes, absolutely. Dominant performance by Lewis, led every single lap. Unfortunately, he wasn't allowed to get away with the Grand Slam because, Bottas set up the fastest lap towards closing stages. But incredible show once again, as expected. And he never really looked hassled even once, did he, Lewis? And, there was never a problem with tire management today, which was pretty much the issue, which was worrying him in the last 2 rounds, and it was always going to be their race to win, and that's what happened in the end. A pretty great performance at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. His 5th win in Spain, his 4th win in Spain in a row. It's a very good track for him recently, that's for sure. Great performance as well by Max Verstappen, Brit. I mean, he was the only guy who could really challenge the Mercedes today, and he extended his gap over Bottas in the championship. He's looking like he's got a very good chance of second at this rate.
Yeah, I've been really surprised with how well he's driving that car. Like, he's outperforming it completely. I'm still so shocked that he's second in the championship, because with how dominant Mercedes have been, you'd expect Bottas to be up there. So it just shows you how well he is driving at the minute.
Yeah, all the great drivers outperform the cars. Lewis Hamilton's done it. Sebastian Vettel's done it in the past as well. Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc are two of the drivers that are doing it at the moment. the gap is getting bigger between Hamilton and Bottas. I think Bottas is still the most likely to have any sort of chance of challenging Hamilton this season, but he's got to get off the line better than he did. He lost the race before going to turn one effectively.
Yeah, that was basically the deal for him. I mean, you look at last couple of weeks, he was right there in the points with Lewis, and then the blowout with 2 laps to go basically just made it like he had a DNF because he got no points, and the gap went from, I think, 12 or something like that to 30. And since now, there's been this like momentum drop. Bottas starts on pole, finishes 3rd last week. This week he starts 2nd, can't get off the line. Usually that's a Lewis problem in recent years, and even going back to his good old buddy Nico. But now he's getting the better starts. In part, it's kind of part and parcel. If you can't get off the line, you're going to have a big issue. And getting held up behind big money Stroll really set the tone. And then the used soft tire decision was also a poor choice and strategy. If they go mediums there, at least he has a chance to go at Max. I don't think he would have overtaken him. I think Max would have been able to hold him off because he is a big-time defender, unless he got DRS, and then that might have been a thing. But unfortunate last few weeks for Bottas, where he went from basically being in contention for this title to now having to battle to keep 2nd against Max, who's showing himself outside of the Austrian Grand Prix, what happened to him. And that's what Lewis said post-race remarks. He said that if that DNF didn't happen, he'd be right there too. So.
Absolutely, yeah. Verstappen probably would have got at least 3rd in that race, probably 2nd, I imagine. I mean, Leclerc got 2nd, so yeah. Still, Lewis Hamilton would have been leading the championship even then. I mean, it's just 1st or 2nd all in the last 5 races, and 4 of those have been wins. Bottas, on his day, he can outperform Hamilton, but he needs to do it over a season. He's just not been able to do it yet. But then again, Hamilton is one of the best drivers I've ever seen. It's easier saying this, but I just think Bottas isn't good enough to beat Hamilton. He's not as good a driver. He's a very good driver, but he's not a multiple world champion. Not that kind of material. But yeah, Dev, I mean, Phil just mentioned big money Stroll there, and he ended up finishing 4th after Sergio Perez's penalty. I mean, it was a great start by Stroll as well. He got ahead of Bottas, and he held 3rd place for a while. Ended up 4th in the end. In
terms of Stroll, yeah, he got the start, was able to hold off Bottas for 5 laps, and that was something. And then the anchor dropped. Perez, I think, had pace, middle segment. He was going on an alternate strategy, of course. Then they gave him that blue flag penalty, which even I didn't see. It made no sense. That's like typical. Let's figure out a way to help Lance Stroll since he needs all the help he can get. So let's go and penalize his teammate who's faster than him, and with a bogus penalty. It was like a NASCAR penalty. I saw nothing that he did wrong there. I mean, Roman Grosjean tried to kill Kimi Räikkönen, amongst other people, because he's Roman Grosjean. And they didn't say anything about that, but they give Sergio Perez a blue flag penalty. It completely made no sense and cost him a 4th place that he probably could have had, because Lance falls behind late in races, and that would have been the case there too. But 4th and 5th for Tracing Point.
Yeah, fantastic result for the Pink Mercedes today. They're up to 3rd in the Constructors' Championship now, even after the points deduction that they got for the illegal brake. That was very impressive by them to get up there. But Brit, how good was Sergio Perez today? I mean, he's just recovered from coronavirus. He ended up putting the car 4th on the track. I agree with Phil. I think that penalty was ridiculous. I mean, the Haas cars don't get a penalty for nearly destroying the Alfa Romeos, and Perez doesn't let past Hamilton immediately on a straight, and he gets a 5-second penalty. I think is extremely harsh on the Mexican.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Do you know what? Sergio Perez this weekend has really impressed me. He had a great qualifying and then also a great race apart from the penalty. To come back after 2 weeks of not racing is pretty impressive to see how he's performed. And I think he does deserve a place in that seat if the team decide to pick Sebastian over him. I think he's kind of proved that this weekend, and yeah, he had a pretty good race, so it's good to see.
Yeah, Sergio Perez making the one-stop work. He's the best man on the tyres. I've always said this. He's brilliant at conserving the rubber. So just about to ask about Carlos Sainz. Great race for him in the McLaren, a much needed result. 6th place at his home race, very impressive.
Absolutely. There's always something extra that motivates you when you're driving for your home Grand Prix event, which is the case with Sainz. That McLaren had tremendous downforce and amazing straight line speed, and you could make it with the kind of contest that he was holding with the Renaults and then Sebastian Vettel, who he actually took the light work off towards the closing stages of the race. And I think at the end of the day, if the local hero gets a strong P6, then I think it's definitely a great finish. And also the very fact that he ended up 4 places above his teammates should actually also motivate him.
Yeah, brilliant result by Carlos Sainz. Much needed points from Phil McLaren for that as well. A guy who as well was surprisingly impressive in this race, Brit, was Sebastian Vettel. I mean, he's had an extremely hard time this season. Ended up 7th despite taking his soft tyres, I think about 40 laps. His team letting him down, but him dragging that Ferrari up there.
Honestly, what I saw from Ferrari today was a joke. How they treated that guy. The guy can't catch a break, can he? He did 39 laps on the soft tyre, which is impressive. I don't know how he got that car home. The state of the tyres at the end were a joke. But, I'm so happy that he got that P7 because, do you know what? He thoroughly deserves it. So, yeah, I'm happy for him. But, the team just letting him down at the minute, aren't they?
Yeah, it's a very unhappy marriage. They need to get a divorce ASAP. They've lost faith with him. He's lost faith in them. Yeah. It's just not working. And surprisingly, Phil, Vettel actually managed to hold off the Red Bull of Alexander Albon. And after a decent qualifying yesterday, I was expecting a lot more of him today.
Yeah, well, we talk about, Britt brought it up about how Ferrari just absolutely screwed the pooch with strategy, and they're just basically really messing with it. I mean, here's the thing. I know that Sebastian Vettel is not the same, level as he was when he won 4 straight world championships. But he's a 4-time world champion, and he has the 3rd most victories in the history of Formula One.
Yes.
To go and treat him the way that they're treating him, and with the car that I made a comment about on my show, got you to laugh, that I'm not going to say here because it was a bit of an insult.
It's okay. We don't get many listeners in Italy, I don't believe. So I don't think.
Oh, yeah. So it's basically a red toilet on wheels. That's what I said. And based on the way Charles Leclerc looked earlier this afternoon, it seemed like he was driving one. The porcelain throne stalled, and then he thought he was going to start it up again, didn't work. Or then he took his belts off thinking he couldn't start again. Then once they're like, oh, you could start again. It's like, oh, I left my belts loose. And then now they can just go and they boxed them to retire so they can take new engine components for Spa and Monza, which, oh my God, that is, if you can talk about 3 races in Italy with a car that can't even beat AlphaTauri these days, that's something. But in terms of Albon, as you said, another person who doesn't get help by his team and strategy, and he's also losing confidence because, of course, when you consider Helmut Marko and Franz Tost are just 2 of the greatest people ever to instill confidence in their drivers. This has been going on for a decade and a half or 2. They've ran people from all over the world in and out of Red Bull cars like their underwear. And I feel bad for Albon because he's gotten, Lewis got him a couple of times, and Brazil was really bad. The Austrian Grand Prix was bad, and he could have had a couple of those podiums and he'd be in a lot better place. He can run up there, and now everyone's talking about Gasly, and you're not going to get much of a difference out of Gasly. Red Bull can only make 1 car. They make that car for number 33. Everything is about him. At the end of the day, you're just driving along like you're just holding a bag. And now they have Albon losing confidence, which I think is unfair to him and his talent and ability. Simon Rennie being there is good. I hope that post-break that they will be able to find some things with his car and his chassis so that he can actually perform to the level that he's capable of.
I knew today was going to be funny with you on the podcast, Phil. If you want to hear more of Phil's incredible rants about people, do check out the Grid Strip podcast. I'm sure I'll give you all the details to it at the end of the show. But yeah, so Phil mentioned him there, Dev. Yeah, hashtag unfiltered. Phil mentioned Gasly there, Dev. Another great race for him. 9th place in the AlphaTauri, and he was actually challenging Albon in the closing stages for 8th.
The interesting thing about Gasly is that he's really pulling out some laps which you just don't expect of him, and especially of that car, the AT01. In the last 3 Grand Prix, you've seen that this guy actually goes down, outside of top 10, gets down until to 13th, and then still finds a way up to get into points place. And as Phil rightly pointed out, that Sebastian is contending with something like a toy car. So when you have an AlphaTauri competing against a car which is so down in horsepower, and several cars which are so underwhelming, particularly towards the closing stages of the race, and it doesn't really become that tough a task. But full credit to the young French driver. He, I think, is simultaneously building something strong on his CV to bounce back to Red Bull. I would not be surprised if that switch came around some time from now. But again, another strong performance, and completely taking away the game from the Russian torpedo. So Gasly has been really pulling in some punches this season. Not hard to see.
Yeah, brilliant from Gasly yet again. I mean, he's got 14 of AlphaTauri's 16 points this season, which is just a hell of a stat when you think about it.
Points.
Yeah, speaking about points in the Constructors' Championship as well, I've just noticed this. It's 2 points between Racing Point in 3rd and Ferrari in 5th. McLaren sandwiched by them. It is tight in that upper midfield battle. Wow. Helping out McLaren today as well, Brit, was Lando Norris. I guess in a way we expected a little bit more for the guy, but I find it really hard to criticise him. He was kind of stuck in traffic after a not too great start and ended up 10th. It's still a point though.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think he's had a good weekend, to be honest. He hasn't looked as strong as Carlos, and then, he was just stuck in traffic pretty much throughout the whole race. The thing with Barcelona is it's just a DRS train, isn't it? Like, once you're stuck behind someone, it's so hard to overtake. So I think a decent point to take away, but, not as good of a race for him.
Oh, but he's still beating the Carlos Sainz in the championship. He's still 16 points ahead of him, so fair play. Moving on, I guess the best phrase in a way is ambitious but rubbish this weekend. Renault running their cars very long in the first stint, trying for the one stop. It didn't work out for them though. Daniel Ricciardo 11th, Esteban Ocon 13th. Phil, it's a pretty embarrassing result when they had the new CEO at the track as well.
Yeah, I don't know, the new conglomeration between Chrysler, Renault, and they have some great name for it. I forgot it off the top of my head, but to show up there and your 2 drivers can't even score points, it was a nightmare. The last couple of races have not been great. I mean, Daniel Ricciardo finished 4th in the British Grand Prix, albeit with tire explosions and stuff, but he had pace. Then last week they had a bad strategy. He doesn't finish in the points, and Ocon gets 8th, so it's not great. Then this week they were nowhere. When you consider how tight, as you said, that midfield battle is, at least the upper midfield, giving away points or opportunities for points is going to be huge. And you know that when you're going to big horsepower circuits in the 2 classics coming up, it's going to be very hard to gain those points back. And fundamentally, I don't know what the game plan is. You know that Alonso's coming, and he's already said don't even bother with the 21 car. So, I mean, this may be more of what we're going to see. It's going to be a struggle for that team to score points. They're probably going to be somewhere between 5th and 7th in the constructors, which as a full constructor next year, only being by themselves engine-wise, is going to be very difficult to get over, even with new regulations coming in 22.
On paper, it should be 3 difficult races coming up for them. They've got Tuscan GP at Mugello as well coming up after Monza, another very high-speed track. But Renault did do very well at Monza last season, so you never know. They could have a good low downforce package on that car somewhere. I hope for their sake they do, because they've been cut adrift to that battle from 3rd to 5th. It's a big gap between them and Ferrari now. 12th place was Daniel Kvyat. A pretty nonchalant race for him. Decent drive, but couldn't really get up any further in that DRS train behind Vettel. And he had a penalty as well, another blue flag penalty. 14th place, though, Dev, was Kimi Räikkönen. And you said that before this race that it was probably his best chance to score points this season, but the car is just not good enough when too many finish the race. He can't get up there into the top 10. But yeah, Kimi Räikkönen did all he could today, but it still wasn't good enough, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much how it goes for most weekends for him now. But do you know, he had a good qualifying, first time into Q2, and then that was pretty much all he had good this weekend, to be honest. But yeah, he's just driving that car as good as it can get. So it's a shame, really, when you see a world champion like Kimi as well struggling so much.
Yeah, and Kimi Räikkönen passed the all-time laps raced record today, but I'm sure there'll be absolutely no consolation to him whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, if Kimi were to be here, his own analysis of his own race would be, it's a pretty shit race for me and for the team. I mean, it ended up pretty much where we started. So it's a pretty shit race running around in circles. But, yeah, I mean, but that's all he could do. But at the end of the day, finally some light at the end of the tunnel that the car seems to have something strong for the qualifying. If not, get into Q2, then become the best of the last 5. And I think that's all that they have right now. So it's still looking very low for Alfa Romeo.
It is, yeah. I really do feel for Kimi Räikkönen. It seems a bit like Kubica and Russell last season at Williams. Giovinazzi was in the right place at the right time in Austria to score points, and it's hard to see Räikkönen scoring points the rest of the season, but you never know. He could pull something amazing
Though
out
on his
of that.
final stint today, he was able to actually make a couple of very good moves around the outside of George Russell in turn 4. And then on the straights, he got the hold of Giovinazzi, and then he also, jumped one higher up because Latifi pitted. But then that's all that there is. He's just jumping from 15 to 18. But that's pretty much what luck has for him this season.
Yeah, again, it's all he could do, really. Some good moves at the end of the day. I think he kept Albon behind as well, if memory serves me correct, for a bit. So fair play to the guy. He's doing all he can in that car, but it's just not very good. But yeah, the Haas cars again, Phil. I mean, I think we mentioned it on your show. It's uncertain whether they're even going to be in Formula One going forward. And on their current pace, you can't really blame them, despite Grosjean and Magnussen's erratic defending, doing everything they can to keep the hot cars behind. 15th and 19th for them today, absolutely nowhere.
And it's been this precipitous drop. I don't know how many years ago that they were 4th in the constructors, and now they're in position where they could get beat by Williams, mainly because George Russell is able to perform, and it's something that I don't know what's going on there with Steiner, with the drive. I mean, I honestly believe it's a driver problem, one in particular. I think if they were to put a younger driver in that seat, or one of their Pietro or Delatraz, or insert name here, or put Perez or the Hulk, and you put them with like a Kevin Magnussen, I think there could be at least a little semblance of a difference. But as it stands right now, and also with the Ferrari, whatever their power mode thing that FIA put on them has directly affected the 2 junior outfits that they have immensely, because it's not like they have the best downforce. It's not like they have the best cars. Driving wise, I mean, Kimi Räikkönen, he's going to chill and he's going to have his vodka, and it isn't going to matter. He could run 15th at first. He's going to be the same for Kimi Räikkönen. Giovinazzi is whatever. I mean, he's the Lord and Savior to like ride buyers, but he's nothing that would make you think that he's ever going to be in a Ferrari. And the 2 Haas guys, I mean, there's no accountability, unfortunately. And with Gene Haas, the way he's run teams over his life prior to 2009, I don't have very much confidence in their long-term future unless they make some massive changes, both in the driver front and in terms of car, especially for 22, if they're going to be around in 22.
Looks like they are around in 22, but yeah, it's not very encouraging at all. It's been a massive drop-off for them. I do agree. I think they do need a new driver. They need to get rid of Grosjean. I don't know how he's even in the car still. It absolutely perplexes to me.
I don't know how he's been there for that long, to be honest with you. Like, we have the same conversation every season, and somehow he manages to get picked up again. So, yeah, he definitely there needs to be a change.
Magical manager, I would say.
It does take on a lot smaller salary than his competition. God, imagine if Hulkenberg was in that team though with Magnussen. Those two have got previous. That'd be fiery. That'd be something else to see. Giovinazzi today, 16th, again, another nondescript race. And a bad race for Williams too, 17th and 18th. Russell ahead of Latifi. But the only retirement today, Brit, was Charles Leclerc. And again, he was looking like he was going to do another great performance today, mix it up in the points. He was going long, but that Ferrari power unit just gave up in the end.
Yeah, no, he looked like he would be probably top 5, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, again, that Ferrari, it's just crap, really, isn't it? Like, come on. It's maybe he pushed too hard with that fight with Lando, which was actually really exciting to see, and the engine just gave out. But he did manage to save it, but it was pretty much over from that spin, really, wasn't it? So, which is a shame. Missed out on some good points again. So
big shame for him, big shame for Ferrari, but Charles Leclerc, for me, still probably one of the best drivers this season. He's been unbelievable.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's outperforming.
Apart from his crash and steer, he's not put a wheel wrong, really. So, absolutely amazing from him. Yeah, that's the entire order. Let's go with our picks for driver of the day. I think Sebastian Vettel won today's driver of the day, and I am tempted to pick him, but I will go with, it's a bit of a meme, but Max Verstappen. He's again, just to put it up there in second place. That Red Bull has no right to be there, and he probably lapped his teammate. I don't know, but he would have been close to it as well. So, just unbelievable performance by him. Britt, who was your best driver today?
Mine was actually Carlos Sainz. I thought he had a really good race, done better than his teammate, but he had some really good overtakes as well, and he really impressed me to come through the field throughout the whole race, really. So yeah, he looked really quick.
Absolutely, and put some key moves on Alexander Albon to keep him behind as well.
Yeah.
Phil, who was your best driver today?
I'll go with the fans. I'll go with Seb. It's been a nightmare, and it's going to be, and it's got all the makings of Alan Prost and his exit at Ferrari. It's got all the makings of it. But, considering what he went through today to get that finish, first really decent full race he's been able to have all year, it's at least it gives him some momentum. It gives him a little bit of confidence going to tracks where, he's won everywhere anyway, but, knowing that this is a throwaway season, not exactly sure where he's going to go, it's something positive for Vettel to go and get a decent run out of it and kind of show the team that, hey, I'm here too.
Yeah, I think he'll probably end up racing points / Aston Martin next year, but we'll see. We'll see what happens to him. Hopefully, whatever happens, he doesn't get paid to not race for a year like Prost did in '92. Hopefully, we do see him in F1 next year, but we'll see what happens. Dev, who's your pick for driver of the day?
I would have to go for Perez. I think it was a very strong drive, an excellent comeback drive. Takes some guts to get higher up into the points, especially after sitting out of the car for well over a fortnight. And I think the pressure was on him because, everybody was raving about Nico, as they rightly should have, and they did. But it was time for Perez to deliver and prove that he's not just any driver, and the fact that he has what it takes in him to battle for a strong seed in 2021. And I think this sort of drive settles the debate why he should actually be where he is at the moment. So I'm go for Sergio Checo.
Yeah, 100%. I've said it loads on this show, but I just think it's so bad that he's been treated like he is doing. If he does end up getting the boot in favour of Vettel, there wouldn't be a team there if it wasn't for him. Simple as that. But that's Formula One. That's business. It's a cruel mistress at times. It really is. But yeah, let us know your drivers today as well. We went for 4 different picks today at F1 Chronicle on Twitter and comment on our live stream as well. We do go out live on Facebook, so be sure to like our Facebook page, F1 Chronicle on Facebook. We're also available on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Music, Omni Studio, and Pocket Cast. Just search for the F1 Grid Talk and all those. Back catalogue of over 50 shows now, including some documentary-style pieces and interview pieces like we had with Mario Sola, the head of Pirelli Motorsport. And yeah, I mentioned before, Brit, that you're an F1 YouTuber. Where can people find you?
So you can find me at Britain F1 on YouTube and on Twitter as well.
Phil, I mentioned that you've got a podcast too. Where can people find that?
Yeah, the Grip Strip podcast is on Apple Podcasts. We're also on Podbean. You can find it also on my WordPress, philipgmatthew.com, and also write sometimes for AmericanBettingExperts.com. You probably won't see anything there because he buried all the Formula One articles. So we'll see about future content, but look at one of those places for me. And Grip Strip Pod, at Grip Strip Pod, at Philip G. Matthew. Both of those are on Twitter. Give us a like and listen, and thanks for having me on, George.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks everybody for coming on. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next week to preview the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa. It's in 2 weeks' time. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.